Mr. McHenry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to follow up on my colleague from New York's questions, we've missed having a Federal Reserve comment on this question about international competition. And to that, Mr. Tarullo, looking at the derivatives marketplace, do you foresee a major shift in markets other than the United States as a possibility?
Well, Congressman, I suppose anything is possible, but what I think you're hearing today is that there are two kinds of processes underway which actually intersect to a considerable degree. One is a domestic regulatory reform exercise driven by statute and implemented by the agencies you see in front of you and some others as well. And second is an international process which pre-existed the crisis, but which has been energized and extended because of the crisis. As I noted in my response to an earlier question, on the capital regulatory side, we have been able to achieve a considerable harmonization of the kinds of requirements that would be applied to derivatives as well as to other credit and market risk exposures. In the payment systems arena, I think there is an awful lot of interest among other countries because, frankly, they have seen what can happen when you don't have a transparent, well-collateralized market functioning in derivatives or indeed any other set of areas. So while I can't sit here today and tell you that I think the agencies have collectively gotten the level of agreement, much less implementation, they would like to see, my impression in this area, and it is only an impression, is that things are moving in the right direction. I think it is important to note that each of the other financial centers that people talk about as growing, as indeed the emerging market world grows, is in a jurisdiction which is a member of the Financial Stability Board and the Basel Committee. So these people are at the table.
Thank you. Ms. Shapiro. In the Financial Times article today, the Muni Enforcement Division chief is quoted from one of your SEC employees. He's quoted as saying that muni disclosures or the municipal bond market has become, quote, a top priority of the SEC. Can you comment on that?
Sure. When we set out to reform how our enforcement program worked 2 years ago, one of the goals we set was to create specialized units where we could have staff focus on particular types of cases, become very deep, very expert, more efficient in bringing just those kinds of cases. And municipal securities was an area we thought was particularly important for us to focus upon. We have seen, as you've read in the paper and seen in some of the cases we've brought, real concern about the quality of disclosure by municipal issuers to investors. And we don't have the authority at the SEC to dictate or to tell municipal issuers the way we can corporate issuers what they must disclose. We try to get at that through the intermediaries that buy and sell municipal securities. So we'll tell broker-dealers you can't buy and sell these securities unless you ensure that the municipal issuer is making the following kinds of disclosures. But we also have, and so it's an indirect tool. It's all we have really with respect to the disclosure, except for our anti-fraud authority. So to the extent that a municipal issuer is misleading in its disclosure documents about the state of its pension liabilities or something else that's material, we're able to pursue that as a matter of anti-fraud.
Is there a challenge between the government accounting standards and the financial accouning standards?
There is a challenge. We can't dictate what accounting standards they use either. Many municipalities use GASB, some use FASB, and there are other alternatives out there. But so we sometimes have a lack of comparability as a result of not having required accounting standards.
In that lack of comparability, does that pose a challenge in understanding disclosures and enforcement?
It can be a challenge for investors, we understand. The other problem is the timing of disclosure. We can't say that you must report year-end results within 90 days or a set period of time. And so some municipalities disclose their financial results a year or even more in some few instances later. I will say one of the big improvements in this area has been the creation by the MSRB of the EMMA system, which allows for a great deal of electronic disclosure, and I think that has made life a bit easier for investors.
Is there more authority that the SEC would need to have accurate disclosures?
There is authority we would need. We've been in the process, although for resource reasons we've had to shut it down, of holding field hearings around the country. We did one in San Francisco, one in Washington, to collect information about the state of the municipal market, particularly with respect to disclosure and sales practices, accounting and other issues, so that we could build a really strong record for what we think the real issues are and how we might come to Congress and ask for you to help us in solving those. While we haven't continued the field hearings at this point, we're still collecting lots of comment and meeting with lots of people who have an interest in this market, and I expect we will come to Congress at some point with some proposals.
Thank you.
This time I'll recognize